March 1945. Duel at the Cathedral. U.S. troops battle for Cologne and the Rhine. Cologne, Germany, the famous cathedral city in March 1945. 8 months after D-Day, the U.S. troops are now on the cusp of a long-awaited milestone. Cologne is the largest city that the GIs will take during the war. Dozens of correspondents, photographers, and cameramen have followed the U.S. troops in order to report in detail on the event.
Cologne was the greatest part of my life. Everything that could happen to me, photographically speaking, did happen.
This coverage is mostly footage of ground forces approaching the towers of the cathedral, which for many epitomizes the liberation of Cologne west of the River Rhine. Some of the shots taken by the cameramen of the U.S. military are still perceived in the USA as the most famous scenes of World War II. However, who the people in those scenes were still remains unknown.
That's my tank there. That's it. My tank. I did see a car up ahead of us, in front of us. And in fact, I think there was more than one came in there.
I was there. I didn't shoot the car on purpose. All of a sudden, she was driving through there.
Yes, I immediately realized that this is my sister.
Maybe I did that. I hope I was not the one that would have shot her.
In addition, the perspective of former German Wehrmacht soldiers who had the order to defend the city to the last cartridge has scarcely been researched.
That's true. We had the order to defend it down to the last cartridge. That's right.
It is the last bridge over the Rhine River, which is blown up by pioneers of the Armored Brigade 106. This cuts off their own comrades from any means of retreat.
I thought to myself, this is the beginning of the end.
They wanted to get rid of us. Otherwise, they wouldn't have blown up the bridge. They knew that we had driven into the city center with 3 tanks.
Open conflict breaks out between supporters and non-supporters of the demolition.
And then, my uncle just drew his pistol and shot. I still have this pistol.
The work on this documentary became a real thriller in terms of research. It shed a whole new light on the well-known events and images of the battle for the city of Cologne.
The climactic tank battle for the city.
I remember clearly the first tank in line. When our first tank got to the open space in front of the cathedral, it was hit.
For the commanding Lieutenant Colonel Miller, this incident marks a bitter and personal humiliation, as he will admit in years to come.
Cologne is the only bitter memory I have of World War II. I never told the story of Cologne from my perspective, and most likely never shall.
One man climbs up.
Many people are trying to find out who those people were.
Now, it's almost certain the commander who was reported to the battle for Cologne ends with a dramatic tank duel at the base of the cathedral.
Maybe a second or something, very close. I think if he would have fired, I might have been the one who got killed there.
Cameraman Bates films the fighting within mere yards of the enemy. He described in detail how the German crew died, and thus a search for survivors is futile.
The first shot went in and cut the legs off of the tank commander and the Tiger. The second shot, and immediately the driver and the bow gunner, the trap doors flew open, and they climbed out. But a second shot had shrapnel had gotten them too.
They told me all of the crew perished there. I thought many times.
But who were the Germans who, as all newspapers reported, were the last on the German side to be shot in front of the rolling cameras? Until now, they had never been accurately identified. Surprisingly, the official deployment chronicle of the Tank Brigade 106 states here it was either one of ours or one of the 9th Armored Division. Upon my first request by letter, I receive an even more cautious answer. It is more probable that the tank was one belonging to the 9th Armored Division. Indeed,
those movies which were shown there were tailored to the Americans. I don't even like to watch it anymore. It's all just dishonor and sarcasm. They all got out of the tank before it was even hit. I met them all on the other side. Nobody was burned in there. Nobody got injured.
We are dealing with a serious case of the organized corruption of historical facts.
This question was answered for the first time by your research.
These records show that a man named Wilhelm Bartelbord was the tank commander. Bartelbord had never in his life talked in public about what had happened there.
We were completely tense and time seemed to stand still. After 1 to 2 hours, a tank turned the corner and had to come out that far so he was able to shoot.
He claims that the Americans approached them in a captured German tank, like a Trojan horse, and then immediately opened fire on them.
He expressed the resentment about the fact that they were tricked. Otherwise, he would have shot the tank.
But it's not just the German perspective that challenges the triumph of the Pershing. In addition, cameraman Floyd Garrell claims to have filmed the shot and the evacuation of the German crew from the south side. On March 7, 1945, Garrell shows his photographer, Harold Roberts, the site from which it was taken and recreates the situation with the camera at the ready. On the back of the photo, which remained unpublished, he writes,
"My favorite corner in Cologne. This is a reenactment of how the German tank was filmed in action in yesterday's taking of Cologne."
And Garrell's discharge papers from 1946 state,
"In Cologne, he photographed a tank battle from 1 mile behind the German line, in which the German crew were seen to bail out of a burning tank at a distance of 30 yards.
What might have motivated the German soldiers to continue fighting in the face of inevitable defeat?
Once you're in a war, you kill as many of the enemy as you can, and I don't think there isn't much sense to it sometimes.
Viewed from today's perspective, it was wrong to fight to the last man until everybody was dead.
Based on this footage and several years of research into the background, this documentary reconstructs the advance of U.S. troops into Cologne and shows crucial moments of the battle for the city in March 5th through the 7th, 1945. Witness the U.S. troops firsthand on their advance from the outskirts of the city to the banks of the Rhine and the fascinating research of the Cologne journalist Hermann Rheindorf.
Here we are at the Rudolfplatz. For those of us from Cologne, the war is over. You know, there were 268 raids on our city. Added together, the hours that the city was on alert would amount to 80 days.